Listening to Tapestry, a podcast by a music lover for music lovers. I'm your host, Kelly. Join me as I learn more about the common thread that weaves throughout our lives, music. On episode 14 of Tapestry, I have a funny and inspiring chat with Alex Babineaux and Ben Nugent, who together make up the duo A Novelist, based out of Louisiana. Their 2019 album Folie is one of my favorite progressive death metal albums possibly ever, so don't miss this conversation. Today we discuss topics such as what determines when a piece of music is finished, why power metal dorks and death metal dorks are actually the same dorks, and stopping in the middle of traffic to go to a Derek Roddy drum clinic. You're listening to a small sample of the track Tombeau from their new album Folie. Okay, big oof moment here. This is episode 14. You think I wouldn't do this shit, but I was using a different recorder than usual to record my Skype call, and I totally forgot to hit record after about 45 seconds in. So Alex's intro is missing. Sorry, Alex. You're going to get to know him very shortly, though, and please forgive me.
So, as you said, my name is Ben Nugent. I am the guitarist, and I do guitar and vocals and keyboards and bass for A Novelist. I guess Alex and I started together in like 2008, 2009, somewhere around there. And we met when we were in Lafayette, Louisiana, and in school. And yeah, that's a brief history. I can go into more detail if you'd like, but
well, I figure we'll come back around to plenty of details, but you covered the fact that you're like 80% of the band and Alex is the remaining part of it.
That is true.
So
yeah, I don't look at it that way, to be totally honest, but I see why you'd think that. Yeah. It's not untrue.
You guys are both multi-talented.
It was sort of that way in the beginning, though. I definitely felt that way too, like years and years ago. But it's at the point now where Ben does perform 80% of what we make, but it's the way we write is a lot more. I really don't know how to describe it, but let's just say that I have a lot more input now than I did like 7 or 8 years ago. So
okay,
yeah,
okay.
It's very, true. Yeah, it's definitely I think I serve to sort of filter some of Ben's ideas. I don't really mean like in the sense that like there's a lot of bad that I get rid of. It's just that I have like this. Years ago, Ben said something along the lines of in reference to like some of the jazzier stuff he writes or something. I have like this metallic backbone that I just insert into everything, kind of bring things back to the metal sphere, I guess, and that's why you get the sort of two-pronged sound, I guess, out of what we do. Even if he's playing something totally outside of the sphere of extreme metal, it always comes back around. It's usually because of something I throw out there.
Alex is like, well, I guess I've been playing guitar since I was 9, and I really started before then, but not in any sort of serious way. But how serious can you be whenever you're that young? But you got these fucking kids everywhere now that are like complete virtuosos at 3, absurd.
Mm-hmm.
Their their parents are like abusing the shit out of them. But anyways, I'm just kidding. But growing up, my background was in on guitars and blues and classic rock, and like the first song I ever learned was "Whole Lotta Love" by Led Zeppelin. That was the first guitar solo I ever learned. One of the second songs I ever learned was "Foxy Lady," Jimi Hendrix.
Nice.
And so, growing up, that's a lot of the stuff that I played, and because I didn't know that quote shredders even existed, and now because of the internet, you're able to see like that there's thousands of them,
mm-hmm.
But. And there's just more accessibility in general of all different types of music. But, in the 90s also, music like that just wasn't popular. It wasn't accessible. And I think at some point in the 80s, maybe it was a little bit more. But in any event, my background was definitely not in metal until I was like, and this sounds kind of lame because you got a lot of people like Alex or just other metal musicians I know that, they're like fucking listening to Nile when they were in their crib, but
Yeah.
but I wasn't like that, and I remember hearing Metallica when I was really young, and it was fine, but I didn't even recognize that it was metal, because it's played on MTV, and it's more like, I guess, pop music almost. But anyhow, I remember I was in the. I feel so cheesy saying this, but I swear it's true. I was in my uncle's truck, and the Pantera song "Walk" came on, and I heard the solo for "Walk," and that made me want to be a better guitarist. And I was like, man, in retrospect, a lot of the stuff he's doing is not that crazy, but it definitely was in comparison to the stuff that I'd been playing and listening to. And I was just like, I'd heard something on guitar where I was like, I have no idea how he's doing that. And I got into that, and like I remember hearing Acid Bath, which in Louisiana, if you're a Louisiana kid that likes metal, you're gonna hear. It used to, maybe not now, but back.
Are they from Louisiana?
Yeah, they're from like the Houma, New Orleans area, but they're not together anymore. Their guitarist is Sammy from Goatwhore.
Oh, okay.
But anyhow, that was a band that was real popular when I was growing up, and that was sort of how I got introduced to metal. And then I went into like Killswitch Engage. So I was at this guy's house. He was a metal drummer. I wanted to meet a metal musician, because I was starting to get into it. And this guy listened to quote, the heavier stuff, and it really wasn't that heavy, but at the time, it's all about perspective. And he played perfectly, flawlessly, played through the majority of Alive or Just Breathing on his drum set, and I was hooked after that. And so my formative years, I listened to a lot of melodic stuff, like a lot of At the Gates and Killswitch, and even Lamb of God. I didn't listen to them really after what was that album called? Ashes of the Wake.
Yeah.
But they ended up, they're a great band, and all that good stuff. But I kind of grew out of them, I guess. I don't know. But anyhow, at some point, somebody was telling me about this band Black Dahlia Murder, and I saw this Yahoo Music video for, I think it was Contagion. Yeah, absolutely fell in love with the band, and that was how I got into death metal.
Okay, that's you know what, you're not alone though, because everybody like starts at one thing and kind of progresses into this other thing. I like what you said about remembering the perspective, because I only listened to country pretty much for a long period of my life.
Wow.
And now I'm wearing a Fallujah t-shirt, so you can see how this happens. But I forget, are you guys close in age?
Yeah. Alex just looks younger than me because he doesn't have enough facial hair.
Answer: he doesn't have a beard.
I'll be 30 in a month, so.
I'm 31.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay, I honestly thought you were kidding. That's why I gave you that look.
I'm being totally serious.
Because I know you guys are still in school and stuff, and due to my scheduling issue, interrupted your homework time. So, okay, so
Ben's the one in school. I'm not school.
You're done. No. Oh, so poor Ben had to get.
I just look like I belong
today.
In school.
Yeah. No, really, you're throwing me off. I was like, you're so baby-faced, Alex. But okay, so we're kind of close in age then. So that's helping me get an understanding of like, okay, these are the bands we were probably listening to around the same time. Did you go through a similar sort of progression, Alex? Like starting at one thing? No, straight metalhead out of the crib.
Sort of. I mean, I can tell you the music I listened to before then, but there's not a lot of years before then. Like my dad would get me to listen to like Queen and Styx and like your usual my dad was of age in 77 bands, that sort of thing. I had like a John Denver cassette, and I think I had some Michael Jackson tapes or something like that. But I started listening to metal because my older brother, who is 4 years older than me, started listening to Metallica with some kids in the neighborhood, and we would just make bootleg cassette copies of all their stuff. And so the first metal song I ever heard was Fight Fire with Fire. And I think I was 6 when that happened. And I just remember there's this little neoclassical harmony towards the end of that song over like some kind of medium speed double bass. And I had never heard a guitar played like that before. And so I just thought it was the coolest damn thing in the world. And I also played a lot of Mega Man X games in the 90s, and all those soundtracks are just power metal, but 16-bit. And so, yeah, it was kind of, I was just locked in from there. I definitely had like a new metal phase and like a scene-y metalcore phase too, but it was, I mean, Ben says listening to Nile in the crib, I would say like 7th or 8th grade is when my brother showed me In Their Darkened Shrines, and I was just, I knew that's where I was headed at that point.
Okay. Now, did you guys both play your respective instruments like in school band, or did you just always kind of have this as a hobby outside of normal stuff?
Oh, I actually didn't start playing until I was about 27.
Oh.
I've been playing drums for like 2 years.
Oh, man.
No, I'm joking. I'm joking. No,
okay, damn. I was gonna say, I'm like, well, I've only been playing for like 3, so I thought, shit, I gotta start hauling ass because you're really good.
Thank you. No, I started when I was about 12 years old. Sorry, the dog just ran in this room. Yeah,
get that dog out of there, Alex.
Man, see, that's that big dog right there. No, I started playing when I was about 12. I started with guitar because my older brother plays guitar. Brooks is actually, my older brother is a pretty decent, solid death metal guitarist, and I actually used to jam with him a lot before I met Ben. We played in like a little Black Dahlia Murder knockoff band, nice. Just, harmonic minor, everything, and just me struggling to blast over it. But yeah, I got this used Pearl kit from the 70s that my dad just found in a secondhand magazine. Come to find out later on, they're actually worth kind of a little bit. They're a decent little American-made Maple series kit from, I think, 78 or 79. But I started playing on, yeah, exactly. They sound really good, too. They're like punchy as hell. Anyway, I played that very poorly for a number of years, but I ended up doing marching snare for a really brief period of time in school band. And I had a guy from DCI, he was a Blue Knight snare drummer, teach me some stuff when I was about 15. And so I went from just terrible from 12 to 15 or 16. And once I started working with the marching snare dude, then that's what really brought me somewhere else. And that's when I thought I can actually seriously engage in music of some kind. But it wasn't really the school, though. The school had no music program to speak of. We were just some kids with some crappy drums playing new metal songs in the stands for football games. Like, we would play Beautiful People and stuff like that. Yeah, it was fun. It was a good time.
Man, that makes me want to weep thinking about a school with no music program. Like,
Oh, man. I had my school, I went to a Catholic high school, had zero music program, no music at all. And there was like, they had mass every week. And you could be in the mass band, and like one of my friends played drums, and he was into death metal, and so I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do that." So whenever we put practice for the mass band, we can just play death metal. And and I remember in particular one time I got in trouble because they were like finishing up with mass, and people were leaving, and I went and got on the drum set and played like the fastest blast beat I could, and all these people like turned and looked, and they were like, get the fuck out of here. That's not praising God.
Yeah, that YouTube video, the guy that's like, this guy's at the wrong gig, and it's the dude just going like ham behind that drum shield, like at his church drum set. Oh,
I can't tell you how many people have sent me that video between now and like 10 years ago.
Well, okay. So speaking of that, I guess this is a good segue into talking a little bit more about the actual album that, you guys just put out this year called Folie. But Ben, I know you had kind of mentioned in the pre-interview thing, like, it's a very personal album, so I'm not going to ask you to explain a lot of it, but I'm really intrigued by a lot of the themes that are covered in it, and I've been listening to it over and over, trying to figure it all out.
That's awesome. That's what I did it for.
When I can understand what you're screaming, but just a lot of like the vocabulary and some of the concepts you're talking about, like everything from, kind of like the auto de fe, the whole Spanish Inquisition thing. Like, there's a lot of religious imagery in it. There's a lot of kind of dark, spooky sort of mystic stuff. And is that in some way like an extent of where you guys are in Louisiana? Like, is it just a matter of being entrenched in that bayou kind of imagery laden culture, or is it that's just like how you felt it was the best way to speak that message?
You know,
I hope that doesn't come across stereotypical, but there is a lot of that.
It's okay. So, you know, Alex now lives in New Orleans or the greater New Orleans area. And, you know, he probably doesn't have too much of an issue with it there, but I know that growing up that, me personally, I think Alex too, but I grew up in a place that was super, you know, hyper religious. And, it, was something that was always just sort of a nuisance for me, you know, and, I can't think to any point ever in my life where I enjoyed it, but I use that as a sort of a negative metaphor, right? That's the purpose for doing that, and I think that time period is super interesting. The sort of contrast that you have with people. If you read anything about the Inquisition, you know, you'll see that a lot of the people who were actually burned at the stake they were considered impenitent, or were called the impenitent, which were the people who wouldn't recant their beliefs or were accused of doing something, you know, horrid or whatever. But oftentimes it was just, you know, they got on the wrong side of somebody or whatever. And I thought, you know, how sadistic of a person would you have to be to do that sort of thing? As far as the like the themes of the album and stuff like that go, a lot of it's about a family member of mine. And some of it's actually derived from dreams, like the concept of the Pope of Hell. Me and this family member of mine went through some super hard times in the last couple of years, and I kept having this recurring dream about we were at this theater in New Orleans, and but it was like in the 1930s or something. Everything looked like it was it looked, you know, super vintage or whatever. And there was like this ceremony and like this ritual type thing that was involved. And at the end of it, these red curtains opened up, and the audience stood and started clapping and said, "Everybody, please stand and clap for the new Pope of Hell." But in any event, I talked to this person about that and about that dream that I had, because I thought it was kind of, you know, strange. And he said that he felt like the Pope of Hell a lot of times. and I started thinking about what that meant, the Pope of Hell. And you know, it's just this figure for me. Like I said, I don't like getting into it a whole lot, but
yeah, and I don't want to pressure you on it at all.
I kind of wrote it in a way, though, that like I wrote it so that people the way that I thought about it was so that people would try to dig and get some understanding of the story. And I think that there's parts of it that are okay. It's okay for other people to interpret it how they want.
I felt like maybe the setting where you guys live kind of inspired some of that imagery.
Yeah, some of it. Some of it, like the House of Auto da Fe is a house that was in my family's ancestral home that I actually sort of lost. And it's in my family for like 150 years. And that's the House of Auto da Fe.
It's also the house where we wrote most of the material.
Oh, okay. Because when I was I was looking up stuff about it, people were saying that was like, well, reviewers and stuff. This is why I guess why you don't trust Google. You know, they were saying that was like a reference to the public posting of the sentences imposed against the heretics by the Inquisition. And I was like, okay, thinking about some of the other titles and stuff, like that would kind of make sense. But I mean, that's why I'm talking to you guys in person to set the record straight. But there's just a lot of very thick imagery just all over the place. And I really appreciate albums like that kind of force you to dig down and figure out what the hell's going on. So
yeah, the idea for me for Auto da Fe was this specific idea of somebody being burned at the stake for not recanting their beliefs. But I took some creative license with a lot of it, so it's not, it may not be completely historically accurate. I'm using it as a metaphor, so it's not going to be that concrete. It's a lot more abstract than that. But the House of Auto da Fe, the idea of it is this place where I don't know, it's such an abstract concept. It's kind of hard to define. I should have thought about this before talking to you.
No, it's fine.
Although in the immediate, it is the house where Ben and I, well, more so than just that, like I said, it's been in his family for over 150 years. But in reference to our music, that's also the house where, Ben and I first started jamming at. That's where we wrote almost everything. So it has a significance beyond the lyrical content too.
Yeah. So it's not just a metaphorical house. It's actually a house.
It's used in the metaphor for the content, but there is a real life also House of Auto da Fe too. So yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like symbolic of a state of mind, the House of Auto da Fe. But also in a physical sense, I had this dream when we were losing the house that these people who were taking the place or going to buy it were there, and they were tied up. They're also dressed in like formal wear from like the 30s, and they had the hoods over their heads, and they were burned in the house.
Oh.
And I used to have that dream over and over. I know it sounds weird or bad or whatever, but I did. And that's one of the things that it's referencing when it's talking about strangers in the House of Auto da Fe. One day I'll actually sit down and write it to where it's easily digestible.
Well, I'm just intrigued by the fact, honestly, now that you did tell me what you just said, was how much of the music is inspired by a dreamlike state. And I found that interesting when I was looking more carefully, like even at the album artwork, which is really cool, which is like this wolf coming out of a sheep's mouth, basically, and the whole premise of it being, like, I know it's called Folie, but then there's the Folie à deux, which is like two people holding similar beliefs, that sort of thing. I was just like amazed at the whole subtext of everything, but that kind of encapsulates that album as its own concept. And then I know you guys also had your 2015 album Portraits. So like you guys together, is your writing process one of those things where you're like, hey, I've been thinking about this topic a lot, or I've had a dream, let's get together and jam? Like, how do your ideas kind of synthesize from your brain to two totally different topics like that?
There's a lot of steps that goes into the writing process, and it's changed over the years too, since Ben and I don't get together in person nearly as much as we used to. There was a period for about 4 to 5 years where we used to see each other every weekend at this house, and we would jam physically. And that was the times when Ben would tell me about these dreams he's had. Like, he told me about the Pope of Hell dream on numerous occasions, including right when it happened. But I don't know. I don't want to say Ben sends me complete songs. I don't think you would. Sometimes they're just ideas, so we'll call them song sketches, I guess. Or it can be as simple as a 30-second riff that he'll send me with like a stupid name in the file name. Like we have a, like I'll check my email and see something like it says Star Pooter or Starbutts or something like that. But that snippet becomes like the concept of, or at least the musical concept, not the lyrical concept of a song, and I won't really necessarily play to it, but I'll just think about it for a while. And like, I'm one of those people who's constantly playing a drum pad when I'm watching TV or something like that. And so I'll just mess with it. And the next time I see Ben, this little idea that I've been jamming on for a little bit has evolved into something significantly more than 30 seconds of a riff. And there's now 4 or 5 more sections that have been added to it. And we sort of, I don't want to say we do surgery on this amalgam of an idea, but that's sort of what we do. I don't know. I don't know if I'm explaining this poorly, but yeah, it usually starts with one riff, and we just build from there. Take it away, Ben.
Yeah. So, um, like you said, for years we played every single week, and in like the interim period during the week, I would send uh, riff ideas or song ideas or whatever, and it's kind of incredible when you compare what the initial idea was to what you actually release. Like Interiors, for instance, is the final track on Folie. That song's super old and was totally different. Sounded totally different initially. I mean, the beginning was the same. That was the thing that was the same, but everything else was totally different in it. And it's like sometimes, I don't know, as far as writing goes, a lot of times when I just play what I hear. I don't use music. Yeah, I have people all the
Yeah.
time ask me about music theory and stuff like that. I don't use music theory at all. I just play what I hear. And
You give me hope.
yeah, I just play what I hear, and I'll sit down and I'll sort of think about or listen to what I'm hearing, and I set a click, and then I start from there. And I usually let it, it takes me somewhere because I'm not just thinking about like one melody. I'll be thinking about multiple instruments when I'm hearing the idea, and I think about drums also, but yeah, I don't want to sound silly, but we don't really intellectualize it a lot. It's just
Hmm.
it's just we record the stuff, and we jam stuff, and sometimes you come up with stuff like we recorded a lot of material um, in the last 5 years from the time that Portraits was released, or even before that, really.
Because Portraits was complete for 2 or 3 years before we actually put it out.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So A Novelist has really been around since like 2012, something like
2008 was when we started making music together, which by the time I got there, he already had a few songs completed, but he had different people involved with that.
In terms of like, okay, so you guys went over how you write, you went over sort of how you like telephone your riffs back and forth, and you kind of hone this in and come up with your concept. But when it comes to using music as the tool to get that message out, why do both of you feel drawn to using music as that tool as opposed to writing or painting or something? Like, what is it about music that speaks to you?
Well, if I could say one thing, I didn't when we were talking about writing music. So a lot of times, um, I think it comes in different ways. You'll have these sort of master plans in your head, and you just you vomit them out. And then there's other things where you um, you sort of go little by little. Um, but none of it is finished until he and I get together and do it. You know what I mean? Because it's easy to send ideas back and forth, and for him to be like, "Yeah, I have this idea," and we get together, we jam, we even record demos, but all of that is subject to change all the way till before it's produced.
We changed a lot of stuff actually with Folie for songs that we thought were complete already, sort of on the spot edits. And that the only problem with writing that way is that after the fact, I'll have some ideas that I wish I would have done, and I'm totally willing to redo, but it's too late now.
Right.
Yeah, always subject to change right at the tracking at all times.
I actually do bring up that question a lot with people, is like, how do you know a song is done, or is it ever done? Really?
It feels when it feels, man. There are things on Folie. I'm so happy with how that came out, and there's some things there. When you don't work hand in hand, like in the studio with the person mixing and mastering, there's some nuances that are lost. That's my experience, anyways. Our experience, and so that's a bummer. But other than that, and that was almost few and far between. There were a couple like effects here and there that I was like, oh, that didn't come out how I wanted to, and the feeling, man. Like, you know it when you feel it and when you hear it, and it's just like, I don't know how else to describe it. You hear it and it's like, bam, that's it. And it gives you, it gives you chills. And that, like, apparitions. I remember writing apparitions, and Alex is totally responsible for all the drums on there. But I could, like, I was writing the guitar and I could hear the bass and some synth ideas. I could hear the horns, and I was just like, man, this is going to be so incredible. And sometimes you have those feelings and you can't, or at least I do, and I can't get it out exactly how I want, or maybe it's not what I thought it was. But with Folie, that wasn't the case. A lot of it was just, to me, it was excellent. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn or sound obnoxious when I say that, but we write this music for ourselves. We had people who encouraged us to be more, like, involved in the ways of promotion and marketing and social media and stuff like that this time. That's why we got more attention, I think. And it's a better album than Portraits, in my opinion. But like, he and I really worked hard with each other on it and pushed each other. And, like, I feel like my guitar playing stepped up another level. My vocals definitely did, as far as singing. Because on the first album, I felt like, people aren't, if anybody hears this, it's not metal enough, and I really don't think about that sort of thing a lot, to be totally honest. But I just, I hated the sound of my voice, my singing voice, and forever.
Every singer does at some point.
Forever I hated the sound of my voice, and my problem was, I like a lot of female vocalists, like Bjork and Billie Holiday and Chris Connor, and then a lot of the male vocalists I like are tenors, and so I would try to sing in that range, and I can hit a lot of those notes and sing in that range, but I really is singing out of my range when I try to do that sort of thing, and so it was all about, I'm a true believer that everybody has a range that they can sing in. You have a lot of people say, oh, I can't sing. I think that everybody has their range. You just got to find it. It took me, half my fucking life, more than that, to find the range. And so when I did that, and I found a sound that I felt comfortable with, and I also had encouragement after Portraits that people were like, yeah, because I thought, it sounded like shit. And people were like, oh, no, yeah, it sounds good. And so it was just kind of encouraging. And I was like, well, I hear vocal melodies all the time. A lot of ideas that I get, if I get melodies, I sing them or hum them into my phone voice recorder. And Alex was awesome on the first album. Alex has been a great drummer ever since I started playing with him. That's why I started playing with him.
Way to go, Alex.
But no, really, man, like, Alex's background is, whenever we first started playing, strictly metal, and he's just a very versatile player now. And not that he wasn't on Portraits, but as you get older, you grow, or at least that's the goal you should have. And he's done it. Now I can play something and we're right there. Like we're in the same thought, We had a really close friend years ago. He actually died. But he had said that Alex and I had merged personas. And I think that in some cases that's true musically.
So you guys are really you're just two different. You're one brain and two bodies, as they say, kind of. Well, there is that cohesiveness to your writing that I really appreciate. But I want to go back to something you said about, like, okay, so Alex, you're a very versatile drummer now. You're not just a metal drummer. Well, hearing it, I think Ben's right, but there's there's kind of a beauty to the newest album, I think, in that, sometimes your ears just get tired of hearing just blast beats and double bass, like for a full album, like 12 songs of just utter fucking madness. And I really like the pacing of the album and just the introduction of all the unconventional stuff, like the saxophones and the organ and everything. But did you guys kind of come up with that stuff later on down the road, or like you were saying, Ben, it's just sort of like all comes out of your brain at once?
I was just going to in reference to the last part of the question, is that stuff thrown in later on? Ben tells me about layers that I don't hear and ideas he's sending me at that time. Like I'll say, oh, this riff's cool, but I don't know if it really belongs in this spot. Well, he'll like, oh, well, you haven't heard the bass line yet, but also there's going to be like this trombone part right there. And like, it's all there already. I think Ben hears these all at once. And something he told me a long time ago, I don't know if you remember this, Ben, you had told me most melodic ideas you hear in your head are not originally on guitar to begin with. At least I know a lot of them were like that. So instruments that are not part of the typical guitar, drums, bass model, they don't come to our material after the fact. They usually start that way in some sort of sense.
Ben, I hope you take this as a compliment, but I feel like you sound like if Casey Crescenzo from the Deer Hunter decided to be in a metal band. That's what I think your vocals sound like. But then I actually think like you guys just sound like the Deer Hunter went tech death, because they have all those cool like synth layers and just the phrasing, and you got a soft song every now and then you go like full on ham later on. And I just think that's very important right now in the progressive music world, because tech death in particular, I say here wearing my Fallujah shirt, it so much of it is just like an onslaught, and I don't always want an onslaught. So I appreciate the balance and the you kind of like handle your music with soft hands. I feel like it, and you kind of like delicately deliver it to the listener in a really nice little package. But,
that's awesome. Thank you.
I'm giving you that.
I really haven't listened to the Deer Hunter much, so I'm sure that's an excellent comparison.
They're a pretty great band.
So tech death, yes. So
sure,
tech death. When I started writing metal, or the death metal, anyways, there was no such thing as tech death. I mean, I guess there was, but they didn't call it that. Like I remember hearing. I can specifically tell you when I heard Necrophagus for the first time. Okay, I was 15, or I say specifically, I was either 15 or 16 years old. I was a sophomore, and I heard Francis the Mute from the Mars Volta, and I heard Epitaph in the same week, and man, changed my life completely. I remember hearing it and just being completely blown away, and the technicality was part of it, but as far as Necrophagus goes, or Phagus, however you say it, but anyways, technicality was part of the stuff that blew me away, because I was still a fledgling musician, but it was also just the songwriting was so different. It wasn't just the technicality. It was like, that's a very unique sound, very different sound. And the way I thought about it was they're just really good musicians playing death metal, I didn't think anything else about it. And now you have these bands who are like, oh, we're tech death, yada, yada, yada. And even for our first album, like, we got sort of pegged as tech death. And that was never, definitely not mine. I personally, and I have the utmost respect for all those guys. I don't think I've ever heard a tech death band that didn't have just phenomenal musicians. But a lot of, to me, sounds the same, and it's not something I listen to at all. I mean, I think people consider Obscura and, like I said, Necrophagus, tech death, but I listen to those bands But a lot of the big tech death type bands that people are sort of crazy over, like, doesn't do anything for me, doesn't grab me at all. And in fact, earlier I was mentioning when I first listened to death metal, or when I first really got into death metal, I've only ever liked a handful of metal bands my entire life. Like, Alex is like a encyclopedia of metal. He can tell you pretty much anything, especially black metal. I mean, he can tell you about everything. But anyhow, and so our other band that we know the most, Majesty, is a black metal band. Eric is the same way. Eric can tell you about like every single metal band that's ever existed. I can't tell you any of that, and I would never want to, because I don't like metal that much. I dislike metal. We play
says the guy in a metal band.
But, well, yeah, but I mean, a lot of it's, to me, has always been just very generic, and the bands that really grabbed me, they had something just super special about them to me. And it's all subjective, but a
lot of time and place involved also.
Yeah.
Right. That's surprising to hear, though.
Alex is more the metal guy. I do like metal, don't get me wrong, but like, as far as bands in the last 10 years, I can't tell you really a new band, with the exception, and they consider themselves to be a hardcore band. I love the band The Armed. I absolutely love that band, man. And that's the only band I can think of in like the last 10 years that I listened to that was like metal-ish, or that was a new band for me, a new metal band that I like. And I've listened to plenty. It's just, and they're great, and they make great albums, but it's just not necessarily great albums for me.
Well, let me ask you this then. I'm really surprised to hear you say that you're not a huge fan of metal yourself, at least you, Ben. But when I was asking people in the Discord server, of course, about, hey, what should I ask these guys? I think it was Quint, of course, who said, ask Ben about his vocals, because your screams are really good. And for a person who doesn't quote unquote like metal that much, you don't just pick that up overnight. You have to train to do that, or at least most people do. So how did you teach yourself to do harsh vocals, and was there a particular vocalist that kind of like stood out to you?
That's an excellent question. So in 2007, 2008, 2009, we were playing with another musician that lived locally, and he is excellent. Was a great metal vocalist, and a good guitarist, and he ended up, I guess, just getting tired of fucking around with me and Alex. I don't know. He went to go play with some other folks, but he's a good guy and everything. But he had done the vocals, and we had an album set pretty much lined up for our first album to record. And when we were starting the recording process, he said, hey, I think I'm going to step out, but I'll still do vocals. And I was just like, fuck me. Now I have to record everything. And so then after recording, what was some of the material that was going to be probably a quarter away, recording the material that was going to be the first album, he's like, look, I'm not going to do the vocals anymore. And so I was like, oh, you motherfucker, now I have to do everything.
Do you remember the exact moment he left? Because I do, actually. At least where we were in the process. We had...
Were you guys at Jamie King's studio at that point?
No, we never recorded with Jamie King. We record by proxy with Jamie King. We record in-house all by ourselves. But where we were in this thing he's talking about, there is a version of Portraits buried somewhere on a hard drive, maybe it doesn't exist anymore, that has this other vocalist on every single song, except for Rectilinear Acceleration, because we had every single song done. He left with one song left to do. And the reason I remember that is because we did some test runs where I actually did parts of the end of Rectilinear, just like the last riff, just as like a test. I was screaming over it. So it was bad. That's why you never heard it. And then Ben ended up doing that song, and then it was just like, well, I guess we have to do the whole damn thing over again, because we're not going to have a song with this other guy on 6 of the 7 tracks. It makes no sense. And so then Ben ended up taking the time to actually do all the harsh vocals for the rest of Portraits. But we were at the dead end whenever he left.
It was a different. There was also, even before that, there was like, we had like Virion. We had a bunch of songs that were going to be recorded for the first album that kind of got like just trash.
Lost the shuffle. Yeah. But, she'll probably never hear.
Yeah, but and that may or may not be a bad thing, to be totally honest. Sometimes you revisit things and you're like, oh, that sounds, very amateurish or generic or whatever. But anyhow, I could already do lows. Okay, I refer to screams as mids, highs, and lows.
Right.
And I know that other people have all sorts of terminology and shit they use for different. I don't know what that is. But anyways, I couldn't do highs at all, and like I couldn't really do mids, and I was like, fuck me, I'm gonna have to learn how to do this. And so Eric, who we play with in Nethermost, actually taught me how to do a high. And at first I couldn't really do it. But I worked on it, and my big vocal influences. So I don't want to give you the impression that, and I might be doing some double talk here, but I don't want to give you the impression that I dislike metal. I don't. I absolutely love metal, but as a whole, maybe not so much. I get obsessed with things, and and I really focus on them. And that's how I kind of am with metal bands, but I'm hyper selective, and so I have this handful of metal bands that I really, really love. I can tell you every single part of their song. I can tell you almost all their lyrics. I don't know why I do that, but that's the way I do. And Trevor from the Black Dahlia Murder. I've seen the Black Dahlia Murder like 5 or 6 times live. I've seen a ton of bands live. When I was younger, that was the only thing that I really not the only thing, but it's something I spent a lot of money on, was going and seeing bands live. And absolutely modeled my vocal style after that guy, especially when I started. And his live performance, man, is so good. I love Trevor from Black Dahlia Murder's vocals. I also, somebody that I saw a long time ago, before I actually really got into him, was Travis Ryan from Cattle Decapitation. Saw them in 2006, and he was the next to Trevor. I actually thought that day, I was like, wow, that guy is actually a better live vocal performer than Trevor from the Black Dahlia Murder. He was just different and very versatile with his vocal style. And I don't even know that they're doing a lot of the clean / dirty clean singing. I don't know how you describe it, but at that point, I don't think they really were. But live, he was just excellent. His vocals, they sounded incredible, and just really good command of the audience. And he was almost, to me, like a Cedric Bixler Zavala of death metal vocalist, And I love Cedric Bixler Zavala, dude. Like, I'm such a fanboy for Cedric and Omar. I'm such a fanboy for them. God, I'm so stupid. I love their music, man. Cedric Bixler Zavala and Omar Rodriguez Lopez are like the biggest influences, some of the biggest influences, not the, but absolutely love those two guys and almost all the stuff they put out. But yeah, so metal vocalist though, I'd say Trevor Sternad, or however you say his last name, Travis Ryan from Cattle Decat, Nurgle from Behemoth. And Eric Rutan from Hate Eternal.
Okay. I'm not super familiar with them, but the other two, fairly much, and of course Mars Volta. But
if you get a chance, check out I Monarch. In my opinion, one of the best death metal records ever made.
Easily.
Okay, and so Alex is chiming in. So Alex, who would you consider, if Ben is the hyper selective guy and you are the sponge encyclopedia, who would you consider your biggest influences just on your playing style?
See, that's kind of hard to answer, because something another big way that Ben and I differ is that, so, you know, he was saying he's a big Cedric and Omar fanboy, and it's true, he is. Dude would not let me not be a Mars Volta fan while we were playing together. He pretty much like shoved that band down my throat, but I'm actually thankful for it because now they're one of my favorites. Oh. And every drummer they've ever had is fucking insane. And the reason you have songs like Crestfallen or like Apparitions that have certain drum parts on them is specifically because Ben got me into the Mars Volta at some point, and I wanted to start playing like a little fake. Well, I say fake because I'm not that good at them yet, like little pseudo Latin rock beats and stuff, or you know, play on a stack instead of a ride or a set of hi-hats or something, and just do like some like kind of little fun rhythms like that. But one way in which we differ is that I don't really consider the individuals very much when I listen to music, which I guess kind of sucks because I don't, you know, people who like my stuff, I'd like them to at least be slightly interested in where it comes from. But like if I hear music, I usually don't give a damn who made it, you know, because I'm concerned with the product. I'm not so concerned with the person. Like it just depends. I mean, there's a few people that transcend that rule. Like I don't think I'm that much of the metal sponge anymore. That was definitely the case like 9-10 years ago when we first started playing. And I still do listen to a ton of metal. But stuff that's come out in the past 4 to 5 years, I'm a lot less familiar with. I don't know if that's just because, you know, getting old, working in an office and just, you know, not having as much time to look at. Like I'm a huge Inferi fan. I like Mea Blivascaris a lot. But in terms of like drummers that impacted me, you know, when I was like 12, it was all Joey Jordison because that's all, you know, you wanted to be as fast as him one day. And then by the time I was 14, I already was as fast as him foot-wise. And I'm like, oh, well, what else is there to do? You know,
I guess Dan Preslin's the next choice.
I love that man.
Sure.
I love Dan Preslin. He's one of the few modern drummers that I really like to keep up with from day to day because we have a similar style, I think, when it comes to just like long-winded fixed sections of blasting and stuff, and part of that's just the way Ben writes riffs. You know, these melodies are sometimes very long, and so I'm playing what I think is appropriate over them. So if you hear me play a blast beat for like 45 seconds straight, I really was confident that's what I was supposed to be doing. I can maybe vary it up a little bit, but it's all about playing what's appropriate for the part. And so if the melody's long-winded, the blast is going to be long-winded too. And I don't mean that in a negative sense. It's just, you know, Dan Preslin does that. There'll be sections where
he's a machine.
Yeah, he really is. One reviewer actually mentioned his name on our thing, and that just I lit up when I saw that. I didn't think I'd get the same sentence as him because he's way better than me, like honestly, way better. But other bands that I would listen to when I was kind of cutting my teeth, again, Necrophagus, that was one of Ben and I's early influencers. Hate Eternal, because when Derek Roddy was their drummer, actually the first time Ben.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, me and Ben met at a Derek Roddy drum clinic in Lafayette, Louisiana. I was a senior in high school, I want to say. I was stuck in traffic right by the drum shop, like I'm talking bumper to bumper. I was with my girlfriend at the time, and we were about to go with her mom to look at homecoming dresses or some shit like that.
I'm sure you really wanted to do that.
My girlfriend was cute. I was happy to spend the day with her. But, you know, I didn't really want to do that. And so I saw there was a bunch of cars at the drum center. And my friend Casey, who's also a death metal drummer in a band called Obmort,
excellent band, by the way.
Yeah, they're putting out an album, I think, sometime later.
Back.
Really like OSDM kind of band. Anyway, he called me and asked if I was going to the clinic. And I'm like, what clinic? And turns out it was happening in 20 minutes, and I was right there stuck in bumper to bumper. So I just asked my girlfriend's mom, like, I got to get out of the car. And I look at my girlfriend at the time, and I'm just like, Derek Roddy's right there. And she knew who that was because that was one of my guys. And so I just got out of the car, ran up a block to the drum center, bought a ticket, and got to sit down with my friend Casey and ended up chit-chatting with Derek Roddy kind of a lot. He was really cool. This was probably like 2006, 2007. It must be if I was a senior. Yeah. And anyway, some other bands that I listened to, because Necrophagus and Hate Eternal were way out of my range at that point. That was more like the goal, what I aspired to do. I used to listen to a lot of Kalma and Winter Sun. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
A lot of Kalma and Winter Sun, and they have that same sort of drumming style where it's nothing technical, but it's just fast and driving and constant. That's a big thing about those two bands. A lot of deep beats, if they're not playing it deep, they're blasting. If they're not blasting, they're doing something where the feet take over. You know, there's never a dull, but it's not technical either. It's hard for me to explain. I guess driving is the only way.
Well, I did actually get to see, and I don't know if you did too. Did you get to see Winter Sun with Nabel of Scars on their last tour?
I did not. No, I haven't seen Winter Sun since they did that tour with Starkill, I think was the band. They were with Flesh. They were with Flesh God Apocalypse and a few other bands.
Yeah,
that was the last time I saw them.
I basically went to go see Winter Sun, not to see Winter Sun at all, and then I left a Winter Sun fan.
Yeah,
like, you're right. They just go. They just go,
and that's
forever.
About one of Alex's favorite bands, I see.
Yeah. Well, I was saying that the way I used to be inspired drum-wise was just by driving downbeats and never really slowing down. Not necessarily technical drumming, but like a lot of that Finnish melodic death metal sort of thing where it's either a constant D beat or a constant blast or some kind of 16th notes to fill the time, and there's never really a lull in it. Not technical, but not easy to do either. It's like its own thing.
That's one thing that Alex and I think both have in common, is really big on the European melodeath in our formative years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I came around way too late on melodeath. I famously in the in the Discord server was like, wait, what's melodeath? And someone's like, you know that's short for melodic death metal, and I'm like, oh. Wow, I'm stupid.
It's not melodramatic, yeah.
I realized I'd been listening to all these bands like Soilwork and Dark Tranquillity and stuff, and I had no idea that was the subgenre they belonged to. I was just like, oh, it's just that screamy but kind of song-like stuff. I like that.
No,
song-like.
Speaking of Soilwork, that's another influence I could directly name. Actually, Dirk Verburen from Soilwork is another dude that really kind of caught my attention, specifically whenever he invented his own technique. I don't know if
the Dirk Blast.
I Dirk Blast like on 5 or 6 songs on this album. There's some parts of Folie where if you hear like a matched like, you know, but like a blast that I'm not doing just down with one hand. Like there's a few that are way too fast. Those are all just different versions of Dirk blasting. There's ways to do it in triplet phrasing. There's way to do it in like just 1-2-1-2 or 1-2-3-4 sort of phrasing. It just depends. I wish like the very end of Apparitions, the last blast you hear, that's a triple meter Dirk blast that I did. If you know rudiments at all, work on your flam rudiments, and then Dirk blasting is the easiest damn thing you've ever done in your life. Like it's kind of it's stupid how easily you can play so fast. It is the biggest effort saving technique ever to be devised in this style of drumming. I mean, and some people don't like the way that your cymbal strikes end up keeping like a halftime on them just out of necessity.
Right.
But I mean, if you have a section, they're good for spurts too. Like if you have a section of 3 to 5 seconds where you just want to just blast people's assholes with a little burst of speed, but you don't want to kill yourself. That's how you do it. No, that's exactly how you do
it. Very nice, Alex. Very nice.
Asshole.
Blasting assholes.
Blast assholes.
No, I am at that stage in my development as a drummer where I'm still pretty shit, and like
you'll be there for 10 years. I promise you. We all are. I'm still.
Yeah. I'm like, I missed the entire technique boat. So how do you teach yourself it? It's just like watching a lot of YouTube videos and like crying a lot and hitting things for a long time. So, okay, at least you told me that.
Alex taught me my rudiments, or at least paradiddle, diddle, and I can play a lot of the fills that he plays now.
I play the same fill over and over again, honestly.
Yeah, you did say that. Yeah. That's a total lie, I feel like.
I know. He's such a fucking liar. And he's like, so technically, if you think about like paradiddle diddle or paradiddle, yeah, you may do that. But like, I remember back in the day, I was like so big. I play drums too. Not as much now because I live in a place where you can't. I guess I could, but I don't want my neighbors to be giving me shit. So I just don't. I got mute pads and I'll play on those occasionally.
Oh, yeah.
I just haven't had a lot of time lately to play. But for a while there, I played drums a lot, and that was actually the first instrument I was interested in was drum. Funny story, as a little side note for you. When I was 15, I really wanted to play drums even before that, even when I was a kid, and I wanted to play piano, and parents were like, no, we gave your brother and sister piano lessons. They didn't do shit with it. You don't get piano lessons. So I didn't get piano lessons, but they were okay with giving me a guitar because they were like, it won't be loud, we'll give him something, So anyhow, So I couldn't have drums because they were too loud, and that's fine. I totally understand now. But excuse me, when I was 15, my my parents had split up or whatever, and it was actually before then. I was probably like 13 or 14. But either way, I had saved up $150, and I wanted a drum set. Okay, and so I bought on eBay a red Titan drum set. Titan, that's like off-brand, and
Yeah.
I lied and told my mom that my dad would be okay with it, and so they shipped it. They shipped it to the house that we were talking about, and I don't remember what excuse I told him it was, but I don't remember what I told him it was. I just told him, it was a fucking whatever, and I lied and said that it was something that it wasn't. And I waited till they left, and there was an apartment on the second floor that had no air conditioning, and I set my drum
Oof.
set up in there, and I would play in there every day after 5 o'clock after they left. And then one
No
day,
air conditioning in Louisiana.
and then one day somebody came back and heard me doing it, and I got busted. But I've been playing drums since. But anyhow, rudiments are great to know, and the thing is just doing it over and over and over and over until you're sick of doing it over and over and over and over and over. Paradiddle diddle is the easiest rudiment in the world to play, in my opinion. I actually have some. I don't practice or anything. I'm nowhere near as good a drummer as Alex is. In fact, I suck now because I haven't been practicing. But uh, paradiddle diddle is the easiest thing to do. I worked on my doubles first, and then like really worked on my doubles, and then I worked on. And paradiddle diddle is super easy after you get your doubles.
What kind of grip do you use? You said the technique boat totally missed you.
I mean, just basic matched grip. I don't even know if I do like German or French or any of that shit. I
highly recommend. I'll just say I highly recommend working on German because that's what was taught to me. But the better you get at it, the more you realize when letting go of certain techniques is just as important as learning how to adhere to them. So don't kill yourself thinking technique is the end all be all. But I also suck.
No,
so don't listen to me.
What's his name? Bruce. Bruce, I forget his last name, but he does a lot of Drumeo clinics. He teaches you Moeller technique. He teaches you like push pull, that sort of thing. And I'm just like at the point now where I'm like, I can't even. I can now, but I'm still just learning like how do I rebound properly. Like I didn't have an acoustic set for a long time, and I was playing on like rock band drums, and then I moved to an electronic kit, and now I finally have my own acoustic drums, and I'm like, what the hell do I do with this? So
it's a lot harder now.
It's a lot more.
Yeah.
It's a lot more fun, but it's a lot more difficult. So
do you use a drum pad at all? Like a rubber pad?
I have an Evans one, but I don't do enough on it.
Super important. I would say because the other thing, I was talking about paradiddles and paradiddle diddles being like the only things I do. Any and every fill, almost every fill you hear on Folie and portraits, it's all double stroked. I almost never play single strokes, and the reason you're able to do that is because play double strokes just on a pillow or something like that. Anything that just makes you murder your own wrists for no immediate or obvious benefit. It'll pay off in about 6 months. You'll just suddenly have titanium wrists, and it's.
I was actually thinking about that because I am working on double strokes right now, and I've been on like an exercise kick. I've just been walking a lot, and even just trying to be just more active in general. And I keep thinking about it like, do what's going to make you a better drummer. Like if it sucks now, work the parts of your body that you need to make you a better drummer, and I'll be thankful.
Yeah, it's gonna suck for a while too. I got Ben doing double strokes too a while back and teaching them paradiddles and stuff. Yeah, really. Yeah, the less rebound, the better.
On pillows,
or even on your leg. I mean, your leg will hurt after a while, obviously, but
I beat my legs to shreds.
Yeah.
Huh.
All good stuff. I promise.
Yeah, and it gets addictive too, and you'll find yourself doing it everywhere you're at.
Yeah, also, one other thing I wanted to mention in terms of influences or the things that really get me going now would be Nige from Alcest. I'm the biggest Nige fanboy on earth. My favorite metal album is Neon by Lantlos, back when he used to be in that band. And I feel like that band shouldn't exist anymore without him because I hate everything they've done since
you don't like Melting Sun at all? No?
because I think their self-titled before they got Niche was also terrific. But no, like I'm on the big Black Gaze kick right now. Like that is my stuff. Just all sets, Lantlo.
I'll send you a bunch of shit then.
Hell yeah, that's my jam. Old Heritoire, even new Heritoire. I love that stuff too. That's what's really exciting me these days as a listener, which is, it's kind of funny that I take something like drab and gloomy as like my main sort of thing and then go on and make this sort of stuff with Ben, because the music Ben and I make is nothing that I can't say it's nothing we would listen to because we make it specifically to listen to.
Right.
But nothing sounds like that. And so we make that, I guess. At least to me, I haven't found bands that sound like us, which is good. That's the whole point. We're making the records we want to listen to, and it's just really cool that other people like to listen to them too. It makes me really
and you guys, and I'm really happy to see that you guys got a lot of great press.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, Heavy Blog is Heavy covered you, Toilet of Hell covered you, and I actually wrote down one of the quotes. I think it was from the Heavy Blog is Heavy review. They described you guys as obscura, but filtered through the melodic lens of the human abstract, and I was like, oh, that's
interesting.
I wish I could come up with that like connection there. But if I ever do get around to writing music, it's gonna be for me, and I appreciate that that's what you do. One question I did have was about you guys got to work with Jamie King on both of your albums, and for anybody listening, if you listen to prog and you don't know Jamie King, shame on you, because Jamie's had a hand in the Contortionist stuff, Between the Buried and Me stuff, Scale the Summit, like all over the place. How did that whole mixing and mastering thing go?
Well, you see, I sold Jamie a set of magic beans. Actually, I have no idea where I was going with that bit. To my best recollection, the way that happened, Ben's always just been fearless about contacting people in any sort of position, regardless of who they are. Like if I'm at a show, if I told him I went to a show and saw such and such at like a small venue where he knows you can talk to the artist, you're like, oh, dude, did you talk to him? Like, of course I didn't talk to them. What do I have to say to this person? But Ben will just, and not like in an annoying, like pushy way, just in like Ben is not scared of who you are just because you have some position in music or whatever. So he told me that he was thinking about contacting some producers and just sending some demos and seeing like if we can get them, because the initial plan was just to have a producer like Jamie or someone that we just were a fan of to master or just better mix some rough demos that we had been making. And I think we had sent Jamie a demo version of Rectilinear Acceleration, which is the first song on Portraits. And he really liked it and gave us some feedback that, I guess, really positive feedback we weren't expecting. Or I don't know what Ben was expecting, but I definitely did not think this big wiggy guy was going to be super into us. But he basically gave us, I don't want to call it an offer, but, told us what sort of a plan we could expect if we did a full length with him, doing this by proxy style, where we send him, the open Pro Tools sessions. So we're not recording in his studio, but he's doing anything and everything a producer would do post-tracking with our music.
Yeah, because I thought you guys might have driven up to North Carolina to track and stuff, and I was like, shit, that's pretty serious.
It would be cool if we did, but the way Ben and I record and write, I feel like that would just be a nightmare because we change things on the fly. There are several different versions of all the songs you've heard that don't exist anymore, and I feel like we would just drive a studio engineer crazy the way we do things. I mean, obviously, we would be more set if we did do that method at someone else's studio, but anyway, the way we do it now, that just would not work. But yeah, we sent him that demo, and he was super into it and wanted to work with us on a broader release and told us, he pumped us up a lot, that we should do this and that this music needed to be heard. And so that just started a natural sort of a rapport with them, I guess. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, after we finished Portraits and we liked what we got from it, we just sort of kept that email address in the back pocket, should we want to do it again. And of course we it's not that we started working on Folie immediately after, because it wasn't like a collective idea just yet. We were just constantly making songs every week. We played every weekend.
Right.
When Ben was saying earlier that Interiors is an old song, Interiors is the very first demo we made after Portraits. And that was made in probably 2012 because we finished Portraits and sat on it for a while. We didn't really know what to do with this thing that we made,
Yeah.
but yeah, working with Jamie was purely just because we sent him some demos, and instead of it being just like a business transaction, it was like, yeah, I'll do it. It was more like, I really like what you guys are doing. I think this needs to get out there, sort of a thing. And that kind of blew us away.
Yeah.
But it's purely because Ben has no fear whatsoever when it comes to contacting people. So, yeah.
I'm trying to do that actually with this podcast. Like, I just hand my card out to everybody.
Just do it. Yeah. It's so not my personality, but Ben has made it work so many times that I'm kind of like, well, I guess we got to do it.
It used to not be mine, and now I'm just like, the worst they're gonna do is ignore me or say no. So hopefully
that kills me. I can't deal with that.
It is hard, but maybe, I mean, I'll leave this in the recording because hopefully it'll manifest my own destiny. But in the future, you might get to hear people from Entheos and from Rivers of Nile on this show, because I handed both of them a card at the last show I saw them. So it's like, hey, if they go, I don't know who the hell this chick is, I don't want to be on her stupid fucking show, that's fine. I don't care, but I still gave them a card.
And Sludge.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm making it work.
I feel like I should have gone to see Rivers when they were here recently, just as a fellow saxophone compadre, I guess. But
that's funny you said that, because it's like that's the trend now in death metal is, ooh, it's really cool if we add a saxophone into it. But it's just another instrument.
It is, yeah. And a lot of people don't realize we did it on Portraits too in 2015, which was recorded in 2012. So it's been a.
So you really started the trend.
No, Isan. I'd give it to Isan.
Yeah.
Well, actually, even before then, I think Sierra Bliss has been doing the trombone thing since the 90s, which I wasn't familiar with until recently.
White Ward. White Ward was too.
White Ward, I thought was more recent. They're like, I think
maybe
they popped up around 2014. Yeah, I love that last White Ward album that came out 2 years ago.
Yeah.
My God, Futility Report, that's what it's called. That's one of my favorite CDs that came out in the past few years.
So this is a great question, and I'll probably ask you guys my final question in a second here. But a couple people from the Discord group, that this is of course how I've met you guys. They wanted to know, what has been your favorite recommendation you've gotten from that Discord so far? Because the one, I didn't really personally like it, but Quint, obviously one of the moderators, mentioned I think they're called Snake Feast. They basically are a doom metal band, but they replace anything that would be a guitar with saxophone. And it's a lot to take in. But yeah, I don't know if you have like one particular recommendation that stuck out to you.
Probably Sunless Dawn, most likely. Yeah.
Sunny D.
Sunny D was pretty sweet. That and Sierra Bliss, because I hadn't listened to Sierra Bliss before until then.
The question I always ask people when I send them on their way is, if you could only listen to 3 albums for the rest of your life, what would they be? Like Desert Island, that's it.
Shit. Ooh. That's bad.
I know.
It's real bad.
I'm like, oh, the more of these interviews I do, the more I feel like an asshole for asking that at the very end.
Yeah, well, it's just that I'd had to exclude so much, not just in terms of bands and albums, but just like styles. I'd have to like, what is my mood today? Yeah. And I could answer it based on that only. I'm having a hard time, but I'm just going to go, because it is my favorite, I guess, modern.
We're going to make it work.
Yeah, this, like I said, favorite current metal album. When I say current, that's saying it loosely because it was made in like 2010. But Neon by Lantlos would be one of them. I'd say the second one would probably be Amputexture by the Mars Volta. And the third album, which is my actual favorite band, and this usually surprises some people, I would take Nightfall on Middle Earth by Blind Guardian any day.
Wow.
Blind Guardian is the best band on earth. Put me on record saying that. Death metal is great. It's fun. But power metal is the master race. And no one agrees with me. I don't care. It's perfect. It's perfect.
I thought we were going to be friends. No, I actually do. Do need to listen to Blind Guardian.
Anyone who listens to death and black metal or punk or any sort of alternative form of music with like a certain, aesthetic to it, if you think you're too cool for power metal, you need to look in the mirror, because we're all dorks, just different kinds of dorks. Like the dork who likes the wailing, cavernous sort of vocals is no less dorky than the dude who likes the sword riding, the horse riding, sword wielding, warrior, the wizard daddy, or whatever the hell you want to associate with power metal. It's all the same shit, and I'm so annoyed when people are like, "Oh, power metal, blah." Like Blind Guardian is better than you and me and all of us. That's just the way it is.
I'm so humbled right now because I'm like notoriously anti-power metal, but I won't. I will say I will try anything once. So, and yet I can't.
Anything Blind Guardian in the 90s, any of it.
Fine.
That's a dangerous philosophy.
I'll try some Blind Guardian. I know I have listened to them. I just don't remember a lot of it. But
Imaginations from the Other Side and Nightfall and Middle Earth are like their best albums easily. But I would take Nightfall just because it's longer than that. So if I'm on the desert island, I want the 21-track album.
Okay, fair enough. Ben, you seem to be coming through okay. Do you have your answers?
Well, Francis the Mute would definitely be on there. I would want the album. I can't remember if it's Murray Pariah or who the pianist was, but I would want Chopin's Nocturnes. That's one. That's my Mars Volta, Chopin, and God. Oh, that's so difficult. That really is, I was going to say Depeche Mode, but...
I almost threw out Violator.
But, God, I can't have any Bjork.
You could have some Bjork.
That's a bad deal. I'd have to choose...
See?
I don't know. That's so hard. This is a very unrealistic hypothetical situation because if you're on a desert island, chances of you having electricity are very small.
Oh, really?
Not if you got a power water generator. But anyways, third album. Probably, I really want some death metal in there with some shred. I'd have to say it's a toss-up for me between Cacophony, Go Off by Cacophony, or Omnivium, or Epitaph. So one of those three. Sorry, I can't choose. I'm sorry.
Well, that's close enough. It's fine. It's a hard question.
One of the things that we didn't talk about, but maybe I could give you like an answer on the recorded thing, is we were talking about influences. Didn't talk about jazz at all. Like, I absolutely love jazz. And I don't want to sound like a cheesy saying that. It sounds
I grew up
weird.
on jazz, so.
But, okay. Man, living the rest of my life without hearing a Love Supreme, or without hearing Empyrean Isles, or without hearing So What, like those three albums, I just love those. Or even Christian Scott, like he has so much good material. Love Christian Scott.
He's going to send you a rendition of Mercy, Mercy, Mercy on the
That's right, by Joe Zawinul.
Joe's Wabalavalingus.
Alex and I had this music fine arts jazz appreciation class at UL named Dr. Lucky. That was his name. Yeah. And he would. I took the class before Alex, and I was like, he's gonna tell you about Joe Zawinul, and he's gonna say, and Mercy, Mercy, Mercy by Joe Zawinul. He says that like a million fucking times.
Per class. Yeah.
Or like not going the rest of your life without hearing Moanin' by Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. That's such a great album.
I know it's a tough question, but I just always like to see. I'm sadistic, and I like to see the mental struggle of like, how do I justify, what are these three? But
actually, I would actually remove Amputecture and I would insert Violator by Depeche Mode because I think I had too much guitar music on there. I'm glad Ben mentioned that because that was one of the thoughts I had. You need something dancey in there, otherwise it's going to go insane.
Francis the Mute is dancing.
Yeah, but I would rather listen to Violator than Francis the Mute, but that's just me.
Oh, I was saying I don't think you can punch him through the screen, but that's kind of what it looked like was about to happen.
we're separated by about 4 hours right now. So, it's a drive if he wants to do that.
Oh God. Well.
Yeah, I don't know how I would go the rest of my life without listening to the classics like, Informer by Snow ever again, or or Hey Jealousy, or any of the Goo Goo Dolls. How am I going to go on?
But we'll all survive. I'm sure some Goo Goo Dolls super fan. Hey, you better watch it. Don't touch my Goo Goo Dolls. I think that wraps it up. But guys, thank you so much for spending some of your afternoon with me, and I will see you on the internet.
Absolutely. I enjoyed it. Thank you. Have a good day.
All right. I wanted to offer a brief shout out before I forget, because I realized that I've talked about this like 3 or 4 times now, and I keep mentioning this Discord. People have probably heard me mention it in real life. I've mentioned it on the show, but it is a Discord server called Images and Words. That is a reference to the Dream Theater song, if you didn't know. It's all for progressive metal, progressive rock, but we discuss a lot of other genres in there too. It definitely keeps me occupied online, and I've gotten to meet a lot of great people in there, and I found these guys from the group. The references they mentioned earlier about some of the other musicians there, we keep adding more and more people to the server, so if you're interested in joining something like that, please leave me a comment or find me. I will send you an invitation at the snap of a finger. It's a very, very fun place to be, and it's really supportive. It's a great way to discover new music, and I've already prattled on long enough about this. So there you have it. I hope you guys enjoyed my conversation with A Novelist. You can check them out online. As we had mentioned, their album Portraits is not on Spotify, but it is available on Bandcamp, and then you can find their more recent album Folie just about anywhere. But please do check these guys out. They're fantastic. They're doing some really awesome stuff in the death metal scene, and I do hope you give them your support. As always, thanks for listening.